Wake that ass up
early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest on the line. We have Congressman Cedric Richmond. Welcome, brother.
Good morning to you. How are you this morning?
How you doing
Cedric,
this morning?
what's up, King? We had a very entertaining debate last night. Do you think it was productive?
No, I really don't. I think that the vice president went in and wanted to debate issues and show the American people the difference between he and his opponent, but I don't think he got that chance. And then it just turned into an unfortunate free fall with just blatant lies and you know, you saw it. It was just really a disaster.
Does it make sense to continue to do these? Because, I mean, Donald Trump is not playing by the rules. He's not allowing Joe Biden to talk. He's not keeping up with his 2-minute rule. He's continued to talk. And like you said yesterday, I don't think anything got accomplished, but, you know, two guys just throwing, you know, insults at each other all day.
Well, the unfortunate part is, you know, I said from day one that I thought that you needed a fact checker. And because Donald Trump and, you know, the truth probably don't live on the same planet. And so he just had the ability to just continue to make stuff up. And you can't have a meaningful debate like that. So I really think that if we go forward, that they at least change the rules of the moderator will call out blatant lies. And so unfortunately, last night, you hear Trump talking about the greatest economy ever. And that's just not true. Even before COVID, it wasn't true. So, you know, that's unfortunately just where we find ourselves.
And what is your actual role in the Biden campaign, Cedric? Like, I know you represent Louisiana in the 2nd Congressional District in the House of Representatives, but what's your role in the Biden campaign?
I'm co-chair, and I've been co-chair since the day we launched, and now we have some other co-chairs, but for a long time it was just us, Steve Ricchetti, the chair, and I, the entire primary. But you know, I've been there from the beginning at the inner circle, helping guide the campaign, and of course set policy and priorities.
What are some things about Joe Biden that you think that people don't know that they should know when coming up to this election day?
Well, look, the first thing I say is, you know, he is who he appears to be, and that is a person who cares. He's not a person that is right 100% of the time and that is perfect, but he is a person who strives to get things right, and he strives to help other people's lives. So let me just, you know, if you give me a second, what I was amazed about is as we started this campaign, we would go places and we would work rope lines. So after he speaks at an event with a couple hundred people, they all come up and he will not leave until he shakes every hand and listens to every story. And if there's a kid who stutters, he's going to get his personal phone number and he's going to call him later to say, look, I stuttered. You can still achieve anything you want to achieve. If he runs into a woman with cancer, he's going to talk to her about the progress we're making with the cancer moonshot and the fact that he lost a son to cancer and that, you know, he's thinking about her and he may drop her a note or call her. The point of it is, you know, I was, you know, in politics, you know, you see people, but you don't get to know them. And watching him that he really, really cares was, you know, a pleasant surprise in terms of politicians. So, you know, that's what I think people really should know, is that he cares and he wants to improve the lives of others.
Well, how though? Because, like, for any black person who feels like, you know, they want to stay home in November, right? Because we know we talk about the 4.4 million people who voted in 2012 that didn't show up in 2016. A third of them were black, and you know everybody's saying, "Oh, voters already got their mind made up. They know they're gonna go Biden. They know they're gonna go Trump." What about the person who doesn't feel like they want to vote at all? What is the one thing you would tell that black voter they should show up for?
Well, Charlamagne, you're right. But it's not just the black voter who will stay at home. It's also that black voter in 2016 that voted for Jill Stein or the third party candidate because Hillary nor Trump were good enough. And so we're talking to both of them. So here's that short answer, and especially for black people. It's about being co-architects of our own future. And so that means a presidential plan that will, on day one, triple funding the Title I schools, which means those schools in affluent neighborhoods that have $23 billion more of funding than schools in our neighborhood. We level that playing field from day one. And then we go on to do a whole bunch of things. And look, I just have to say this. We have an aggressive criminal justice reform platform. We have an aggressive police reform platform. But those are not the only two things that African Americans think about in this country. It is about economic empowerment. Black men want to be good fathers. Black men want to be heads of their household. And so we have to talk about entrepreneurship. We have to talk about how to give access to capital. We have to talk about college education and making sure it's affordable. You know, I can remember my mother saying, "Oh, Cedric, any college you get in, we'll find a way to pay for it." And I just knew that wasn't true. Now, by hook or crook, I knew she would try to make it happen. But if I wanted to go to Ivy League that cost $40,000 a year, I knew we couldn't afford it. But she could afford Morehouse, and that's the only school I wanted to go to. But so then you look at the $70 billion that we want to put into HBCUs, or the home ownership program we want to do, which would allow Black people to pass wealth on from generation to generation. Those are the things that I think we should be talking about. Look, people know who Donald Trump is, and that's just not enough. We have to tell people who we are and what we want to do for the Black community. And then I'll just close with this, Charlamagne. We're also, the pledge was to make sure that we have the most diverse cabinet in the history of the United States, because what we do know is that we're not going to impose our beliefs on the Black community. We want Black thought leaders at the table, help devising how to empower Black people, not other people telling Black people how to empower Black people, but Black people doing it.
You know, last night was a 90-minute debate. And with everything facing Black people in America just this year in 2020, they spoke on race for like 103 seconds. Why aren't our issues better represented?
Well, first of all, it was BS from the start. And this is not the Biden position, so I just want to be clear about this. This is Cedric Richmond's position. For Chris Wallace to, in the subject matters, lump race and violence together is offensive and racist from the start. So when we got the chart saying the subject matters we will cover, so it was like COVID, unemployment, Supreme Court, race/violence. Now,
that's
you
leading.
know,
That's leading.
And that's just the type of things that we kind of deal with. But look, people are still in this country uncomfortable talking about race. They're uncomfortable talking about systematic racism. They're uncomfortable talking about white supremacy. We saw what Trump did last night with that question, but this country is still, even after the George Floyd inflection point, they're still uncomfortable talking about it. And so that's why you see just such a small portion of time dedicated to race or Black issues, let alone no conversation about equity. And so that's where we find ourselves.
What did you think about when President Trump brought up Joe Biden's son and some of the things he said about his son, you know, being hooked on drugs and being kicked out of the army? How did he say it? He was like, how did you feel about it?
Dishonorable discharge.
Dishonorable
Cocaine
discharge.
use.
One, I think that part is incorrect. But the main point that Hunter Biden suffered from substance abuse and was addicted to drugs was true, and the vice president admitted it. But in a country right now where we have an opioid crisis facing this country, to still dehumanize or pick on people because of a substance abuse problem, I think shows why he should not be president. And so whether it's opioids or other drugs, America has a substance abuse problem, and we have a plan to address opioid addiction and others. And it just shows that this president is not ready to lead, but it also shows that Vice President Biden, you know, he's honest, and he admitted it. As hard as it was to look in the camera knowing that your grandkids are watching, that Hunter's children are watching, he had, and he did admit that their family has dealt with that, and he beat it, and he's proud of them. So just like in our communities, look, we all have that relative that we know is addicted to something, and we don't stop loving them. What we do is try to double down and continue to help them, even if it's hard.
You know, if people ask, is Biden better than Trump? Sure. You know, but I have to ask, what does that mean? Because I watched the debate last night, and I'm like, he dropped the ball a lot of times. Like, for instance, why didn't Joe slam Trump after he wouldn't condemn white supremacy? That should have been a verbal body slam right there in the moment.
Well, look, as somebody who has been on the debate stage before, you know, you have 1,000,001 thoughts coming, and part of it is you're trying to see if you answered the question before adequately enough. Do you want to go back and touch that? But I think that, you know, when some things speak for themselves, and, you know, there's a term for that in law. I think when Trump gave that answer, it was just like, are you serious? Are you really, you know, are you really standing and saying that right here? But look, he could have pounded him. But I think that, you know, the good thing about debates is now we'll go out for another week or two and make sure that the whole country saw it and continue to pound that this is what this guy believes, talking about stand back and stand by.
What platform should the next debate happen on? What platform? You know, people have been talking, you know, it should be on very different platform, various platforms. What platform do you think the next
World
debate
Star
should happen?
I don't, sitting here, I don't know what the next platform is. The truth of the matter is, I think that the more, you know, easier access to the platform, more just working people platform, I think is better for us. And look, I would love to have a debate that people can get on their smartphones, YouTube, all of those things, because look, those are the people we need to talk to. Those are the people we need to remind that, you know, elections do have consequences. Look at the people this guy's putting on the Supreme Court. This guy's appointed over 200 judges. He bragged about that last night, only one of them Black. He has a cabinet where only one Black cabinet member. And so I wish we could find a platform that those millions of voters who don't understand or really have not been inspired to vote, who it affects the most, would get a chance to watch. Because unfortunately, the people who are suffer the most because of bad leadership are the ones that generally don't participate in the electoral politics.
So you think we should have more debates? Because I don't think we should. I think it's pointless.
Look, just me, not the campaign, I would not debate Trump again without a fact checker. But when you're the candidate, if there's a match, you're going to show up and you're going to get into the ring. But I think that they have to make some real changes to that format. Look, I follow my grandmother's advice. My grandmother always told me, never argue with a fool, because from a distance, you can't tell who's the fool.
Yep.
And so if you jump in that ring and all hell breaks loose like it did last night, it really diminishes you, because whether you want to or not, you're going to be taken down to his level. And so I do have that real concern.
You know, another question I'd love for you to give me some clarity on, because I thought this was going to be a slam dunk for him to nail Trump on the $750 in taxes that he paid. But Trump flipped it and said it was Obama's policies that enabled him to get a $73 million tax refund. So was it Obama's stimulus policies that led to the Obama IRS writing a check back to Trump? Because Biden didn't dispute that.
No, it wasn't. It was the fact that the system has always been rigged for those who can write off expenses, defer depreciation, and do all of those things. Now, were there some things in the Obama tax bill that Donald Trump was probably able to take advantage of? Absolutely. But remember, we were coming out of the worst recession in the Great Depression. We were trying to jumpstart an economy. So we had not only the stimulus package, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, we also did, or they did at the time, some creative stuff in taxes to keep businesses afloat, keep people employed, which is why you saw towards the end of their presidency record job growth and us turn it around, which Donald Trump squandered. But for an American president to stand up there and be gleeful and boastful about the fact that he's rich and he doesn't pay taxes when he pays less taxes than a school teacher or the frontline workers that are out there risking their lives, I thought that was just an insult to injury. And so, that's partly why the first thing we want to do is repeal the Trump tax cuts and invest that money into other things that will improve the lives of the other 99% and not the top 1%.
I agree with that, but isn't it hypocritical to try to nail somebody for something that an administration you was a part of implemented?
Well, it goes back further than that. And no, I don't think it's hypocritical. Trump won, if you look at the whole article, there are a whole bunch of things that Trump took advantage of. So if we cannot rely on Trump's assertion that he used the Obama era tax rules to do that, he's a liar and a cheat. And what liars and cheats do is they lie and they cheat. And so I don't believe that was the case. And I don't believe his taxes are on the up and up. I think he'll write down whatever he needs to write down, like the $70,000 on hair or whatever that mess was, in order to take a deduction or a break. So I would not give him that is necessarily true.
Got you. Trump is telling his folks to show up to the polls. He said that last night. He actually told some of his supporters to go to the polls and basically disrupt things, but Democrats are telling folks to do mail-in ballots and absentee ballots. What is more effective?
Look, I am stressing where you have early in-person early vote. That's what I'm pushing, because one, you can social distance, the lines are not that long, and there's no doubt that your vote counts. And so with mail-in ballots, which is accurate, I don't have a fear there, but my fear is that if you if you don't get the form exactly right, that Republicans are going to be challenging your ballot. And that gives me some concern. So whether you sign on the wrong line, whether you don't have the two witnesses, but if you go in person and early vote, we know that vote counts, and that's one less person that is voting on election day. So the lines will be shorter, and people can social distance, and we know that that is the best way.
So you trust mail-in ballots?
I do. I trust mail-in ballots, but here's the part that scares me. It's that Republicans are going to challenge every Democratic mail-in ballot to see if my grandmother left off a line that needed to be filled out. Or in some states where you have to do it in black ink, not blue ink, they'll challenge the ballot. That's the part that scares me, is the fact that Republicans will do anything to win this race. And if that means challenging every ballot that's a mail-in ballot, that gives me a little pause. So if you're going to do a mail-in ballot, look, go to YouTube. We have an iwillvote.com that you can go to make sure that you fill the ballot out exactly right, so that we know that it will be counted. And so if you're going to do mail-in ballot, which is safe, just make sure you dot all your I's and cross all your T's.
That scares me now, because I have 5 kids, and when I got to fill out some of this information for my kids, I be missing some lines sometimes. So I know to do a ballot and they're going to be testing me and checking to make sure. That gives me a little anxiety.
Well, that's why we put it on iwillvote.com, and we even put commonly made mistakes so people will know it.
Gotcha.
Do you think the two-party system in America is dead?
I think it's being challenged right now, and I think that it's a legitimate challenge to it. And so what it does is it makes sure that both parties should have to go out and earn every vote. And so right now, I think that you see the growth of independents, and it is not a third party, but it basically acts like a third party, where people have to go and talk to independents and not just stick to their party lines, but actually go earn some votes. And I think that is a necessary check on the system. and it causes competition, and competition is good for everybody.
Besides fact checking, what you said earlier, after last night's debate or the other night's debate, what do y'all go back to the drawing board and say, you know what, we have to do this differently. We have to make sure for the next time this has to be done this way. What do y'all talk about to make sure that whatever happened in the last one doesn't happen again?
Well, the only thing that, and I have not talked to the vice president yet, I'm sure I will. The only thing that I would assume is that to make sure we don't go to Trump's level. We are classier than he is. And, you know, it's that saying about wrestling with a pig. You both get muddy, but the pig enjoys it. And so that's the part that I think that we will talk about. But, you know, and making sure that the public understands the difference. I mean, this guy still will not own the fact that we have over 200,000 people dead because he's incompetent. He knew, he lied, he covered it up, all so that he could protect his economy and protect Wall Street. And so, you know, we're paying a dear price for that. So all of these people that are catching hell homeschooling like me or virtual learning with a kid, that's his fault. Those people that are unemployed right now, that's his fault. Those people who have lost a loved one, that is his fault. It is the coronavirus, but it is the Trump incompetence that put us in this position. And I don't think that we talked about that enough last night or made it clear enough that it should have been handled better. We did it with Ebola, and we should have been able to do it with coronavirus.
Gotcha.
Do you think that the vice president's answer or non-answer about support he receives from the police will hurt him?
Remind me of that one.
When he was asked, when Trump asked him, you haven't received one endorsement from any police unions or law enforcement, and he couldn't name any. And when he kept asking Vice President Biden, you know, do you believe in law and order? And Biden just kind of like sat there.
No, the fact that, you know, we don't have a bunch of police union support, I don't think it hurts us. I think that what it means is that after George Floyd, after all of these incidents where unarmed African Americans found themselves dead or injured, I think that it means that Vice President Biden stood up and spoke his truth, which is this has to stop, that there is systematic racism in policing. And yes, that cost him some support in police unions. However,
that's the answer, though.
And
that was the answer, Cedric.
Mm-hmm.
That's the answer. Like, why couldn't he reply like that? If he replied like that, people sitting back would be like, oh, yeah, he did speak up for, you know, the protesters in the street. He did speak up for unarmed Black and brown people. That's why the police won't support him.
Well, if you remember, after George Floyd's killing or murder, he did a direct-to-camera video. He did a speech on it and talked about where we are in this country with systematic racism and those things. And look, Donald Trump can hide behind law and order all he wants to. We know what that is. That is that's that old Willie Horton strategy of let me scare white folks by saying Black folks are bad and dangerous and they're coming out to their neighborhoods to hurt them. And the vice president didn't take the bait on that, but the vice president stood up and during this racial awakening, and it cost him support with police unions. That's no doubt.
I want to ask you a couple more questions. How can a Black person in good conscience be a member of the Democratic or Republican Party? Because I just don't ever feel like our issues, our interests are represented in either.
Well, look, I can't speak for the Republican Party because I think actions speak louder than words, but I can speak for the Democratic Party. And the basic principle of the Democratic Party is that we understand that government is here to help people, especially when they can't help themselves. So let's go back, my frame of reference, my lifetime. Sometimes people get knocked down where they don't have the capacity to help themselves back up. So whether it was Hurricane Katrina or Rita, Hurricane Sandy, or the wildfires, or COVID, where you see an economy destroyed, you see people out of work. What we believe in as Democrats is, yes, we're going to try to help people lift themselves back up. But to the extent they can't, we're not going to abandon them and leave them alone. So that means right now, if we have to expand food stamps, as people would call them, like it's a bad thing, then that's what we're going to do, because we understand that people are in food pantry lines and it's not their fault. It is the fault of the federal government who couldn't contain coronavirus. If people are unemployed, we're going to expand unemployment benefits so people can pay their rent, their mortgage, or whatever else. That's what the core principle of being a Democrat is, that we're going to help people. Now, the other part is we're going to empower people and give them the ability to chart their own path towards a future. Now, does every party get it right? Is the legislative system a very frustrating system? Absolutely. I enjoyed being an electrician much better than a legislator, because when I was an electrician, at the end of the day, I flipped the switch, the fan came on, the light came on, I saw the progress. In the legislature, sometimes you will go years. It took me almost 6 years to repeal the mandatory life sentence for first offense heroin in Louisiana. 6 years. But we got it done, and the 52 guys that were doing life for first arrest of distribution of heroin got to come home. And so, wow. It's a frustrating process, but it's the government we have, and I believe that the Democratic Party truly cares about uplifting people and helping people when they can't help themselves.
How many guns do you own right now, Cedric? Especially after hearing Donald Trump tell, the Proud Boys to be on standby. You a Louisiana man. How many guns do you own?
I have one gun, and I'm looking at purchasing another. And the unfortunate part is I saw a movie the other day, and I just decided that, with the chaos going on, the firearm that person had that I want. So,
what kind of firearm was this? Was it a Desert Eagle or 40 caliber? What was it?
No, there's two that I want. One is the Judge. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's a handgun. It's a revolver that can shoot either a 45 bullet, or it could shoot, I think, a 401 shotgun shell. And that way, if you're home, I just go back to that scene in Boys in the Hood where Lawrence Fishburne shoots straight through the front door. If you're coming in my house, I'm going to assume that you are a foe, and I don't want to necessarily have to be aim the best. So that revolver with shotgun shells in it, I think it spreads, trick. And then whatever gun that they had on 21 Bridges, which I watched the other day, that just seemed a good sport gun.
You have young kids or no?
I have one, a 6-year-old.
Yeah, that's the reason why I have a bunch of handguns. But I use the 9mm so it doesn't go through the door or through the wall, just in case if my kids are sleeping and I got to shoot somebody. I want to make sure it doesn't go through their wall or through their door to hit them. So I got, just to make sure. But then I got one for bears, just in case a bear ever comes up in the crib or whatever. But never know.
So why do people think Democrats are anti-Second Amendment?
I don't know. Look, the best hunter and shooter in Congress is a guy named Benny Thompson, a black guy from Mississippi. And Benny might have 20-something guns, and they range the gamut, but he is the best shooter. And so I don't know why people assume that we're not for the Second Amendment. But, everything has limits. You can't have a bazooka. I mean, it'd be probably cool to own a bazooka, but you can't. And so you can't have an M16. So at some point, weapons are weapons of mass destruction, not the Second Amendment. And think about this. When they wrote the Second Amendment, there was no such thing as an AR-15. There was no such thing as an M16. So the framers of the Constitution were not talking about guns that could cause that much carnage in such little time. So, I don't know why, but to have some reasonable gun reform, like closing the Charleston loophole, where this kid sat in that church and he said the people were so nice to him that he had second thoughts before he murdered them. And you mean to tell me we can't just, if your background check doesn't come back in 72 hours, you have to have that gun? Well, let me just tell you something from my neighborhood. The person who needs a gun immediately is the person that shouldn't have a gun, because something is wrong if you want a gun and you cannot wait to get it. And so those are the types of things I think we just have to talk to the American people, that it's just common sense. And so, you know, I don't know why Democrats get the probably because we let them say it. You know, if you let people say stuff over and over again, people will start to believe it. It's why Muhammad Ali always said he was the greatest. Reporter asked him why. He said, if I say it enough, people will believe it. So we've let the Republicans say we're anti-Second Amendment so long that people actually believe it, when we're not anti-Second Amendment. We're just pro-common sense.
Right. Yeah, that's always my biggest issue with the Democrats, is the messaging, you know, and like that's why I thought the debates would have maybe, you know, done Vice President Biden some good. But do you think people who viewed the debate gained any clarity or answers?
No.
Yeah, I do. I think they gained some answers around COVID-19 and his incompetence, and the fact that he still does not have a plan for how you open back up government. He has this make-believe. And I thought one of Biden's good lines was when he jabbed him on the fact that he said, drink disinfectant or bleach. I mean, this
Bleach, right.
this president has no clue in how to handle the pandemic, because he and his circle of friends, they've made about $300 billion during this pandemic. Our circle of friends, they're hurting, and they're trying to figure out virtual school. They're trying to figure out how to pay the bills. And so I think that was the biggest, one of the biggest differences in the debate, besides the fact that this president can't condemn white supremacy, and he's going to rush through a Supreme Court pick that is adverse to Roe v. Wade. But you know what question all of his Supreme Court picks do not answer? Brown versus Board of Education and other issues, Miranda, all of those cases, and most of the gains that we made during the civil rights movement came from the Supreme Court. So that means the Supreme Court can reverse them. And I don't trust this president and his private conversations or his agenda.
Gotcha.
Just my final question. How do you think the outcome of this debate helped or harmed Biden? Because even when I was watching, you know, cable news last night, CNN, they were saying like it's not like Biden was good. It's just that Trump was so bad.
Well, look, a lot of people thought that Vice President Biden would not be able to hold his own, would not be able to stand up. And I think he did that last night, and he did it well. But what I think that the biggest thing that comes out of the debate is that around the world, they're probably looking at us and laughing at America, just like they laughed at Donald Trump and were caught on tape, the world leaders. And so our standing in the world is going in the opposite direction. And that does not make us safer. The fact that he will not stand up to Putin and his bounties on American soldiers does not make us safer. And I think that what it did was it locked in our support. And for a lot of people who may be in a position that they were in with Hillary and Trump and not excited about either, I think last night was a moment of clarity that one guy is just bat crap crazy, and the other guy is genuinely concerned about their well-being and has a plan to get America moving back in the right direction. So I think it'll lock in our soft support, and it will make others give us a second look.
Yeah, I'm just when I look at them, man, I just don't see the future. When I look at guys like you, I see the future. When I look at Senator Harris, I see the future. I just don't see the future. I didn't see the future on that stage. I actually saw in America. I'm so tired of.
Well, look, the visual, I will give you, the visual was two older white men. However, one of those white men picked a black woman to be his running mate, and one of those white men vowed very early on to make sure that he will put a black woman on the Supreme Court, because it's a segment of the population that's been holding us down for a long time. But two, it's a segment of the population that has never had a voice on the highest court in the land. And I think that if you look at those commitments, that speaks to who he is, along with the fact that he wants to have the most diverse cabinet in the history of America. And look, we didn't get into it, but his Lift Every Voice agenda, although, you know, it may not be 100% of what everybody has asked for, it is the most ambitious Black agenda of any presidential candidate in the history of America. And so he is moving the needle. So his appearance and Donald Trump's appearance, I'll give you that. However, what he stands for and his values, I think represent moving us towards that progress that everybody wants to see.
So this is my last question. If we get Joe Biden and Senator Harris in the White House, and the black agenda, the criminal justice reform, prison reform, all of these things, if they don't get done, we blame you, Congressman Cedric Richmond, because you are the hood black whisperer in that White House. We have to blame you.
Don't cry now.
Charlamagne, look, I'll take that. I mean, that is very, that is true. Look, even in the mob, if you bring them to the game and something goes wrong, you get blamed to it. And I've been vouching for the vice president since day one. And if we get in and we can't expand funding to Title I schools, create economic empowerment for black men and black businesses, if we can't do more to protect, look, it should be low-hanging fruit that black people can live their lives without being shot or killed by the police. That should not be asking a lot. Criminal justice reform, making sure that it makes sense, holding prosecutors accountable so that white kids don't get diversion in drug court and black kids get a plea bargain. Those things, if we can't accomplish those things, look, I will take the charge, I'll take the lick because I deserve it. I am vouching for this vice president, and I believe when we get in office, we're going to be able to accomplish those things to move the black community forward deliberately. Not we're going to lift all boats and black people will, their boat will get lifted also. We're going to have specific programs aimed at fixing a specific problem, and that is systematic racism. So yeah, all that to say, yes, you can hold me accountable.
All right.
Word.
Well, thank you for joining us, Congressman Cedric Richmond. We appreciate you for checking in.
Don't let this be the last time, man. We got 35 more days before the election.
We got 35 days. I'll come on after Senator Harris does her thing next Wednesday, so we could book it after that. I know she's gonna show up and show out and do a really good job and show America what she's made of and what black woman magic is. So
That's right.
we could do it right after that.
All
Let's
right,
do it.
sounds good.
All right, my
Thank
brother.
you for checking in, brother.